What's good, fam? It's your boy Jorge. Welcome to another episode of Hanging with the Boys. I got my boy in the studio today, serial entrepreneur. You're a busy man, it seems like. I got Alex Ficco in the house.
Yeah. Busy, I would agree with. Serial entrepreneur, that's debatable.
How's the holidays for you?
Fine. Yeah. I'm not a big holiday person.
Uh-huh.
So, my family's pretty small anyway. It always has been. So that's why it's never been a huge deal. But yeah, just hung out with my mom on Christmas and that was really about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, it's a stressful time when you got kids,
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
So I got two boys, so got to make sure they get everything, but then they have everything.
Yep.
So it's a little harder. This year we went pretty small for them, so they're kind of like, but then we tell them, hey, you have everything. They're like, yeah, that's true.
Right. Right. Yeah.
So,
Are they stoked on the new place?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're pumped, dude. They're outside every day on the trampoline and everything. So
Yeah.
like I was telling you off camera, first episode I've done since the last episode we had.
Mm-hmm.
And moved into a new house that has a studio that I built there. So it's big change, but I'm pumped on it.
Yeah. No, it's a super sick setup with the potential for 4 different sets and being out of the house in the shop. It's perfect setup.
Yeah, this is one of many sets we have in here. So, if people want to come, I encourage it. I mean, you're a fellow podcaster as well. So,
again, that's a loose definition, but I'll take it.
Yeah. But it's one of those things where you just kind of, it's just kind of addicting, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's cool. With our podcast, Go to Bed, it's just me and my friend JP, and it's about nothing. That's kind of the whole point.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just at the very least, at the very minimum, it's a good reason for us to hang out. And we just talk about whatever, shoot the shit, and post it. That's it.
Yeah. I have a buddy that he comes on this podcast, and he has a podcast himself, and his co-host is in Oregon, I believe. And it's the same thing where it's that's how they keep in touch.
Yep.
Bi-weekly, via online, and they do their podcasts. And I mean, I listen to it every Monday. So
yeah.
It's one of those things. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah. It's kind of weird. You come across people that really know you from listening to podcasts. Cause you can't really get a good feel on someone in short clips, or even if you've met them before, just kind of in passing. But when you post hours and hours and hours of real conversation, they really, it's you've never met the person, but they actually pretty much know you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I've had with this one. I have people hit me up. They're like, dude, I just feel like I'm hanging out with you guys when you guys are talking.
Yep.
And that's the biggest compliment, because it's kind of what we're going for.
Yeah, exactly.
So.
Yep.
But yeah, I take it as kind of a time capsule. It's funny, maybe in 20 years it's still on YouTube, and I can go back and my kids can watch and they're laugh at it, or I could be that was going on in my life at that time. So
right.
If that's kind of how I see it.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause everyone has stories of what happened.
Mm-hmm.
But it's all documented. So it's a good way to share those stories with everyone, and everyone can go back to them, not just yourself or your own stories.
Yeah. And what I struggle with it, and let me know your opinion on it. I struggle with trying to scale it, just because I know the formula basically is what everyone else is doing, but it's hard for me to do that because it's kind of making things up or trying to go viral and stuff like that. And it's really hard for me to get out of my comfort zone and do that, because I try to just be real. And a lot of times it's maybe for some people it's exciting, but for me, I just feel it's kind of boring in a way. Even when I have certain guests or whatever, it's still it's not that jaw-dropping stuff that you see a Theo Von, and you're like, dude, that's so funny.
Yep.
And I don't want to recreate something like that, because then it's not authentic.
Yep.
So that I have a hard time with that.
Yeah. Yeah. My biggest thing with ours is it just pisses me off to do things half-assed, and it's below half-assed. We just record it and post it. That's it.
Yeah.
And I know it has potential. That's what drives me crazy. But then I don't have the capacity to put any effort at all into it.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's because you're busy with other things, or just
okay. Right. And yeah, it's one of those things. It's low priority, compared to everything else you got going on. But yeah, as far as like that's like the formula. The formula always changes for what's popular or, social media and stuff like that. So like right now it's TikTok or Reels or whatever. And so you got to do the clips. It's like you could just do the podcast, not even post the fucking podcast, just do the clips. That would be more beneficial than doing the podcast, which is weird. But yeah, for the clips, it's like I study this stuff a lot because I'm interested in it. And then from 10 years of being Feeki, that's when I was like obsessed with learning, like, why did this video work and why did this one not? So like you, I also know what to do. I just don't do it.
Yeah.
And then that's what pisses me off about myself. But the going viral thing, a lot of it too is like, there's different ways to go viral, especially like in podcast land where it's like you have the Theo Vons, they're like professional comedians. So like everything that they say has the potential to go viral. They just need the clippers to do it for them and post it because they're like actually funny. And then like there's other types of content that's like educational or different types of entertainment or whatever that could go viral too without being comedy. So when you're like in between, it's like you're not a professional comedian. It's kind of like you're in the land of like podcast bro, where it's like the thing now is like everyone has a podcast or like they need to stop selling podcast gear at Best Buy and stuff like that. But you just have to be able to like eat those type of comments and like purposefully post things that will piss people off. And I have no problem doing that. Again, from being Feeki, like I have more hate comments on a single video than most people get in their entire life. So like that doesn't bug me at all. But I could see like during that time for me or just for anyone else, like that stuff can really affect you and like get under your skin with like hate comments, you know?
Yeah. I don't really care about that stuff. I'm just more like, I'm just very like mellow. So it's hard for me to kind of switch when kind of everyone's already seen how I am.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't think that you need to switch because that's what you're saying is like when you try to recreate or like try to play a character that you're not, especially now, people have such a good like bullshit filter or authenticity filter that like they can see right through it.
Right.
So it's like, how do you get those clips that can just organically go viral? But a lot of it, you'll notice it like with Theo specifically, because if you listen to his whole podcast episodes and then you'll see some of the clips, the clips are cut up, and it's not that they're not authentic or whatever, but the clippers are very good because they know that, okay, here's like a 3-minute segment that's gold. It's like, how do I make that into 1 minute?
Right.
And so it's when you hear the clip of the funniness, it's different than the whole clip, funniness, you know? So you can get away with doing stuff like that and still being authentic.
Yeah. I don't know. So I guess this year I gotta really push on.
Yeah.
We'll see.
And I think, the clips and the content thing, it's one of those things too, that like by doing a little bit of extra effort, the results can be like exponential. The guys that do like TikTok marketing for brands and stuff, I've seen them speak on stage and everything. And it's crazy. Like they'll post the same video like 8 times. Like they just don't give a fuck. Like, if you weren't that person, you're like, oh, I already posted that, I can't repost it. Sounds crazy. They just don't care.
Yeah.
They'll repost the same video 8 times. They'll see, slightly different versions of the same video. They'll say, oh, this one did better. Then they'll grab that one. They'll make 8 more versions of the same video. But you can see it in the results. It's by doing, the iterations of this same video. They'll take a video that originally got 4,000 views on TikTok and turn it into 40 million views for their clients. And like when that's the top of your funnel to sell whatever you're selling on there, like that's the difference between like, oh, I posted a video and this doesn't work versus like, holy shit, I got a fuckload of sales off of one video.
Yeah. It's crazy. It's a game, and you just got to be able to play it good or be willing to adapt to it, so yeah, I get you with what you're saying though about it's frustrating, especially when you got other things to do or your focus is on something else. But you have something and there's potential in it.
Yeah, totally.
You know?
Yeah, that's the most annoying thing to me in the world, when you know something has potential and you know what you have to do. Even it's not like you're banging your head against the wall like, why isn't this working? It's like, well, I know why it's not working. I know what to do, but I just can't do it because I don't have the capacity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you said a little bit something about Feeki. So that was your AKA. You still go by it.
Yep.
But what was that about?
Yeah, so that's you know, I used to be a rapper, and when I tell people that for the first time, I always have to give the asterisk because I know how that sounds. You know, like everyone knows someone that's like either a rapper now or used to be a rapper. So, you know, the asterisk is like, yeah, I used to be a rapper, but we made it to probably like the lowest level of like doing something, I would say, in music, like independently or whatnot. So yeah, I did music for 10 years, I think total.
And
before I stopped.
What age did you start?
I think basically like 19 to 29 is what I was doing. Doing it. Yeah. I'm 33 now. So
that was like perfect time for you to dive into something like that.
Totally. Yeah. I just started doing it because I was bored, and, it was something I could do by myself. Like all my friends moved away after high school, and I'm trying to figure out which way to go with this story, but basically, like, I am slightly delusional in a good way. You kind of have to be delusional to like do things that matter. You know, there's like delusional in a bad way, and then I think there's delusion in a good way. And that was one of many examples where I was just delusional enough to be like, oh, I could do that, when there's nothing at all that says like you can do that.
Yeah.
I just get that way sometimes. Like, oh, I could do that, you know? And I knew at that point, like, I didn't really have much like guidance growing up on like, you know, my parents are great people and like always had everything I needed. But as far as like leadership in the household, there was never like, oh, you're good at this, so like you should pursue this, or there's all these different things in the world.
Yeah.
It was like just no conversations like that. It was always just understood. There wasn't even conversations about like going to college, but it was understood like do good in school and go to college. Like that's the path. But by 19, I figured out that I didn't want to do like something quote unquote normal. And like, that was the first thing where I was like, oh, I could do that. And
not to jump around, but, so before that you were motoing.
Yeah. And during too, you know,
and then you turned professional.
Yeah. I mean, local pro, which is like decent B rider, really.
So that didn't really deter you. So you were riding, but you kind of already knew that you weren't going to make it, or you didn't care enough?
No. I mean, I think the sport has changed a bit since then, because like I graduated in 2009. So it's around that era. Like the sport is like older now. Like it got really young as a sport, and then it got older sort of. So like back then it was well understood. Like if you're not a factory rider at 16, like you're fucked. You're not going to make it ever. And I didn't even start racing. My first race was when I was 15. I was on 85 still. So like it never crossed my mind that I could make it or whatever. But it was that, you know, when I first started riding, I rode a little bit before that. Like I had like an XR80 when I was 9. That was my first bike. Yeah. And then, but when I really started riding at like 14, I had a lot of like really negative self-talk back then, just like telling yourself you suck all the time. And for some reason, like that worked for me back then. It definitely wouldn't now, to the point where that would like motivate me to try to get better. And I would just ride and
you would tell yourself that.
Yeah. No, I would think that. That's just like you're fucking trash pretty much. And then so I would go ride and try to get better. And Moto was the first thing for me where it sort of clicked, like the formula of like hard work plus time is results. And so, you know, I really just enjoyed the progress of getting better. And so, yeah, throughout high school, that's like all I cared about was riding, but it was never even like I care about it so I can make it. It was just like I like doing it. Yeah. And so, yeah, I ended up, you know, like intermediate, local pro, but nothing, you know, there's fucking, I mean, you know better than anyone, but there's levels to pro. There's there's like 6 levels above local pro, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
So even in Supercross, there's like 3 levels out there at the same time, you know, and those guys are 2 levels above where I was at. So, you know, decent rider, but nothing like crazy, you know?
Oh, okay. So the rapping, so it wasn't like there was 2 career paths there that you were like chasing both of them at the same time. It was kind of, one was fun and at the same time gave you that it's cool getting better and just riding.
Yep.
And then the other one was like, oh, I can do this.
Right. And then I basically treated music the same way when I started, was just like, you suck and just like eat shit until you don't. And so, yeah, it was
How would you feel if someone told you that though, like in the comments or something?
Well, I think that back then, like it does really affect you to get like any type of hate comments.
Yeah.
After a while, you kind of get seasoned to it. And then the only ones that hurt, are the ones that have at least a kernel of truth to them, because, and that's why they hurt, because you know that person is like at least somewhat right. If someone says some stupid shit, like it doesn't matter at all. And also, music is a very weird thing because it's so subjective. You know, you have the greatest artists in the world objectively based on numbers, and 50% of the population says that person's trash. Yeah. So you kind of have to take that into it too.
Or people, you know, that's the funniest thing for me right now with like social media and everything. There's a lot of celebrities now coming out of it, but then you'll ask like this other person, you know, you might ask like a Messi, have you ever heard of this guy? He's like, nah. Nope. You know? Right. And it kind of humbles people real quick, but
yeah, totally. And you can see it at the top level too. Like Jake Paul is a great example. So much hate. And it's like, some of it is for good reason, because he like was retarded on YouTube and like did a bunch of stupid shit. Logan, same thing. But now it's like, to me, objectively, I'm like, well, he definitely knows what he's doing. Like he's very, they're very methodical and thought out. And like even the shit that seems stupid, like they're very, very smart guys. Yeah. But even with that, probably even more than 50% of the population think that they're retarded. So, which is just not true, but it's just like, you always have to keep that in mind too, that like really no one's opinion of what you're doing matters. And it's very, very rare, probably never, where you see someone or you get hate comments or just like hater mentality from someone who is further ahead than you. Yeah. Because they like respect what you're doing, even if it's at a much lower level, because they were there once. It's only from people that are dirtbags. Yeah, much. Exactly. That's it.
Yeah. And then you'll reply back and oh shit, I didn't know you reply back.
Then they're a fan. Yeah. Oh dude, I was just kidding. Or, you know, it's like, all right, dude. Yeah. And you have to think too, like, sometimes people just have a bad day and you're on the other end of it. You know, I think probably everyone has like made a phone call at some point and the person like blows up on you and like, you didn't do anything wrong. It was just wrong place, wrong time. You were on the other end of the phone. That's how a lot of social media is too, where they just had like the worst day, like their life just sucks in general. And then they had a bad day on top of that. And they see your video or your podcast clip or your song or whatever, and they're just ready to fire off at the next fucking thing that pisses them off, you know?
For sure. All right, so you have the same mentality you go into rapping. How long did it take you to like kind of figure out that you were pretty good?
I probably know that now, but even then, like I never really thought that much, because that's one of the things, like, I guess just entrepreneurs in general kind of struggle with this mindset. There's a really good book on it called The Gap and the Gain, where entrepreneurs constantly live in the gap because they want so much more. And it's very hard for them to turn around and look at the gain on how far they've come. Right. So I've gotten better over time at you know, taking a step back and recognizing those, you know, accomplishments or how far you have come. But definitely like during music times, I didn't have that either. Like my negative self-talk was getting better, but I still would never be like, oh, I'm good, you know, because I just wanted so much more.
Okay. But there was a time where stuff started happening for you that showed that you were good.
Yeah. I mean, that's like, you know, the numbers don't lie type stuff. So, and that's more of what I would look at was like the numbers. And that's when I started like, okay, why did this video do good and this one didn't? And it's like, okay, I think it's this. You test it again. Okay, yeah, I was right. Or no, that didn't make a difference or whatever. So yeah, I would mostly just kind of look at the numbers and then try to, that's when I figured out too, like my numbers really started going up when I stopped caring as much and was like, I'm just going to fucking do whatever I want. And like, I never had a mullet as a kid like everyone did from, you know, the 90s or 80s or whatever. And so I was like, I'm just going to get a mullet right now. And then that sort of taught me about like branding and different stuff about marketing and also just being polarizing. And I figured that out through the content too, which is why I know that for like the podcast clips, where it's just like I figured out the same stuff works on TikTok now. It's just slightly different format because this was back when Facebook was the place to go viral. Yeah. And so I figured out, I was telling JP, because he's filmed all my videos, like he just started filming when I just started doing music at the same time. So we just like came together and we were always trying to make them better. And I just had a feeling, I was like, dude, if we just did like shitty on purpose, like phone in a car, I was like, I just think it would do good. And those were the first videos that started to get like thousands of views or like 20,000 or something like that.
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, we're on to something here. And then I figured out, you know, with that, on that format back in the day, you're scrolling on Facebook, it's like would have a title and then the video. So TikTok doesn't have that. So the video has to bang right away.
Yeah.
On TikTok, you don't look at the title as a user until later, till you're already watching it. Facebook, the title is what stopped the scroll. Then the video has to bang right away for them to continue watching it. But I figured out like people kind of have like a negativity bias. So it's almost like clickbait on YouTube. Yeah. I would title the thing something that wasn't total clickbait where it's fake, but it was like something that I knew would make people think like, oh, this is going to suck. And so I'd come up with the title that way. And then when they watched the video, either they were right and it sucked and they would fucking let you know in the comments, which was good for the engagement because then it drives it. Yeah. Or they get pleasantly surprised and they're like, then they'll let you know too.
And then become a fan.
They become a fan. So just like I learned a lot about that too with like being polarizing, where if you try to play to the middle, everyone just sort of feels like indifferent about you. Even people that think you're good, they're like, oh yeah, like that's pretty good. Yeah. People that think you suck, they're like, you know, what an idiot, but they just keep scrolling. If you take it more to the extreme where you're just like, this is my target audience, that's who this is for, and fuck the rest of them because they weren't going to like you anyway. Yeah. But now they'll just let you know that they don't like you, which is better. And then the target audience who it's for, they become like actual fans and more than just sort of indifferent about you.
Interesting. You kind of, yeah, you definitely took a different route instead of trying to be like the cool guy, like, hey, check out like Mr. Beast style videos, you know, 5 years ago. You were like, I suck. Come watch this.
Right. Yeah. And yeah, like looking back now, you know, like music definitely taught me like my first bit of knowledge on branding, marketing, and business. So people always ask me like, do you regret that? And I'm like, fuck no, never. Because like there's no real estate company without that for sure. Now I know so much more about those topics that I can identify where I fucked up with music. And so, you know, I'm sitting here preaching about like being polarizing and branding and stuff. I should have gone way harder with it. You know, I should have just doubled down. And, you know, I got into this mode after a while where, you know, I think the first actual music video that did pretty good was Way Up. And that's where we had like Mason was in the video. We filmed it at Conway's. He was like doing flips and shit. And we had more bikes and it was all like American themed and stuff like that. And, you know, one of the hate comments that I would get all the time was like, all your shit sounds the same. And I knew they were right. And we were always trying to do like way different styles. Looking back now, that's the most fucking retarded thing ever. It's like translating it to the real estate company. It's like XYZ marketing channel just got us a deal and we made a, 5X return on the spend. Yeah. We should do something totally different now.
Yeah.
that worked. So like, let's try something else.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, we should have made Way Up 10 times in a row. Like literally almost the same exact song,
Yeah.
almost the same exact video. We should have just fucking milked it until people didn't want to see it anymore.
Yeah.
Not listen to the minority and then try to do a totally different whatever. You know, I should have just went hard as fuck. And I was, even after that, I was concerned about pigeonholing myself into like a motocross guy again, because I wanted so much more, wanted like commercial success. And I knew that wasn't going to happen if you're pigeonholed.
Yeah.
But I should have just been the full moto guy and then switched it later. It was too early to try to branch out of that. I should have just milked that for all it was worth. And then, you know, you build that fan base and then you have much greater reach later. It's like trying to, you know, sort of like cart before the horse type thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's kind of like MGK Post Malone. They kind of come in, and I know a lot of people hate on them because they come into the culture as rappers, and then once they made it, they turn into like punk rock or country.
Right.
And you're like, what just happened? You guys were like pretty dope rappers, and all of a sudden now you kind of used hip hop to get to where you were, when instead of just starting at country, you just started at hip hop. So it's kind of the same thing there.
Yeah. And I think those two guys are great examples of people that are objectively some of the best artists in the world. And they still get hated on today for a myriad of reasons. But like, numbers don't lie. The fan base doesn't lie. Sold out arenas or stadiums, if you're Post Malone, doesn't lie. So like, at the end of the day, that probably does bug them a little bit, but like, they're rich and you're not. So who gives a fuck?
And you could see it nowadays too with like, you know, if you follow like hip hop or, you know, or even like country, because country's, you know, getting huge again.
Yep.
But all the videos nowadays are the same. All the artists are coming out with the same kind of stuff. Like you see one, you see a different one. It's just, which artist do you like more?
Right.
Type deal. So yeah, it's all like cookie cutter that these people are doing. But
and ultimately
they're doing it because it works.
Yeah, exactly. And those two guys are great examples too of like, their image was a big reason why they ended up becoming big in the first place. You know, Post Malone puts out White Iverson, and he's like, you know, I don't know if he had face tats yet then, but he was tatted up. He had the cornrows or whatever. And that's like the shock factor of the video. MGK is like a punk dude, but back when he was blowing up, like the fast style rap, it was like, it's very appealing to watch as like the consumer. Whereas like, if they just didn't even have a look, they could put out literally the same exact shit and it would get no views. So, you know, those are examples of people that like, they're definitely smarter than they look too.
Yeah. Yeah. They're definitely doing something in two different genres, and you're getting a fan base in both.
Right.
You know, so some talent there.
Totally.
Yeah. So you started doing the videos, started doing good. There's that's what I was saying, serial entrepreneur, even though maybe Feeki as a rapper is not necessarily a company, but it's a business that you were doing. Yeah. Your brand by yourself. And then you learned a lot from it.
Totally.
So that's why, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it was like my first dip into business, and, you know, it was like the first dip into like team building too, because like, after, I think Way Up may have been the first song that we did together, me, Alan, and Garrett. And then we basically were like a band for the most part from 2016 until 2020. Everything was three ways. It was like Alan was the producer. He made all the beats. And then Garrett, we recorded at his house. So he was like the engineer. And then, you know, I was like the face of it. Yeah. So, but Garrett and Alan, like kind of like the three of us collaborated on like the melodies for everything. I wrote all the lyrics. So it was really like a team effort just for the music side of things. Yeah. And then we just split everything three ways as far as like streaming income and stuff like that. And then like touring and, you know, having Neil as my DJ and P as a filmer, and like the first bit of like figuring out how to do merch and having a website and selling all that stuff. So it is like the base level of like little business stuff here and there, trying to like manage expenses. And, you know, at that level, we made it to the level where it's like, it's the lowest form of needing people in the industry. Like you're above just like local shows, like selling tickets for opening for whoever's coming through. And then like you're able to tour, but you're not at the top level where it's like, you know, I'm signed and like all you have to do is the music part, which would be ideal. So it did force you into a bit like when we did Warped Tour in 2017, you know, it's like I'm wearing like 6 hats for coordinating it, even with like, you know, I had a manager then and, you know, help with some of the stuff, but you know, there's no like tour manager with you. So like I'm the tour manager.
Yeah.
And then I'm the artist. And then I'm like buying the hotel rooms for us on the days off and coordinating the whole trip and, you know, all this stuff. So it's a lot to, you know, try to go through all that. And then you're trying to like manage expenses and make sure everyone's paid and do all this shit. So
did you do Warped Tour 1 year?
Yeah. 2017.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was that the last year?
Last year for the tour?
For the tour.
I think they did it 1 year after that, if I remember right. Yeah.
I think they're coming back.
Yeah. I saw some stuff. I don't follow it enough, but I don't know if it's going to be a full tour or I saw something where it was like a global thing where they were doing like a couple of stops
more like
in
a
the
festival.
US. Yeah. More festival style. Yeah.
So getting on Warped Tour, which is pretty dope.
Yeah.
You know, I went to Warped Tour. I got a media pass and I was able to shoot Yellow Wolf that the year he did it. Did that bring in a lot of confidence? I mean, you said that was 2017.
Yep.
In 2020, you kind of ended.
Yep.
So did that give you like confidence there to like, okay, well, Warped Tour is big. So I'm on this tour now, you know, what's the possibilities from here?
No, not really, because like it's just sort of like what I expected of myself.
Okay.
So, you know, that goes back to like the gap in the gain thing where I should have like celebrated more, try to capitalize more on the opportunities that I had. But I was always like, I don't like, not that like I didn't want to do it. Like I did want to do it, but I wanted so much more that like, it was almost like it didn't matter. It was just like an expected next step for me. And then even on Warped Tour, like we're on the smallest stage, like, and it's like a metal tour for the most part. So there's only like 3 hip hop acts on the whole tour.
Yeah.
I'm on the smallest stage and it was a good experience. Looking back now, I would never do it again how we did it, like in a van, and it was just brutal. It's like the most brutal tour to do because like on a normal tour, you drive during the day, you have a hotel, you hang out, you do sound check, you go on, you're done.
Yeah.
You go back to the hotel room. Warped Tour, it's Groundhog Day in the sense that like you're doing a festival every single day. So the festival starts at 11 and it ends, you know, like 6:30 p.m. So you have to drive overnight every day. And like, we didn't have a bus or anything. Like we're just in my van. And so like, I'm sleeping on the floor of the van in the back. Neil is sleeping sideways across one of the passenger seats. JP is sleeping sideways across another passenger seat. Those were our beds for the whole summer.
Yeah.
And then we had a driver who would drive us overnight and he would sleep during the day. And then, you know, East Coast heat in the summer is fucking gnarly and we have nowhere to go because we don't have a bus. We're just under the merch tent all day, every day, sweating our asses off. And so, much different experience than like if you're able to do it on a tour bus where those guys just hang out all day. They fucking play video games. They're in the AC.
Yeah.
Then they go on much more like a normal tour. Not our experience at all, but it was a lot of fun. We have a ton of like, you know, fun stories from it and stuff like that. But it really didn't like do all that much for me because it's in like a different world for the most part, you know. It was cool to be exposed to like the metal and punk world and stuff. And like, you know, to see some of the bands that we're like friends with go on to become huge. Like we were on the same stage as Knocked Loose back then. They fucking played Jimmy Kimmel the other night as a hardcore band.
Yeah.
So they're like massive now. And they were on the smallest stage on Warped Tour.
Yeah.
You know, so we were with them every day. And like Bad Omens, same thing. They were on our stage. They only did like a third of the tour that summer. And they had a huge hit like 2 years ago, like commercial success too. So it was really cool to see that, but it wasn't it much better launching stone for those guys than like hip hop.
Right. For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's cool. So 2020 comes along. You're doing the hip hop stuff. What kind of brought it to an end?
It was it was a lot of different things. Like I started doing real estate in 2018 or 2017, pretty much. Like I was able to quit my job. I like quit before we went on Warped Tour. And then basically instead of going back to work, I started trying to do real estate instead. Okay. Another thing that I was delusional enough to think that I could do and
the real estate
was correct
at the time.
Yeah. And, how I got into that before I get into how I quit music, real estate was always something that like interests me. Like I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, a book that tons of people read that get into real estate in like 2011, didn't do anything with it. And then in 2015, I think it was, JP was working at MX Trophies up in Virginia City, and his boss, Nick Fain, he was the only person I knew. I didn't even know him. I'd never met him until this, but only person I knew that like even had real estate, like rentals. And he's not like a real estate guy, he's a business guy, but I knew he had a few rentals or whatnot. So he was nice enough to meet with me for no reason. And, I was trying to get into like apartments, and I brought a couple deals that I had like underwritten on a free pro forma thing.
Yeah. So you asked him though. You said, can you meet with me and talk? Okay.
Yep. And he was nice enough to do that. And, so I underwrote a couple deals and basically just to see if I was doing it right. And he gave me the best advice I've ever gotten that I give people all the time now. He looked at it and he's like, yeah, this is right. But, the issue with this is like, one, you have no money. And two, even if you did have money, no bank is going to loan you the other $3 million you need for this 40 unit without a track record. I was like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. And, he was like, if I were you, like apartments are always going to be there. Just put this on the back burner and just focus on making more money now. And I was like, okay. So didn't do anything with that advice, but, I was doing music at that time, doing better with that. Yeah. Still working at the valet. And then in early 2017, I got like reintroduced to wholesaling on a podcast. And that was the thing where I was like, oh, like I could do that. Cause like the way that they pitch wholesaling, I guess for anyone that is listening that doesn't know, wholesaling is basically when you find like a good off-market deal, you put it in contract to buy, and then you sell the contract to someone who's actually going to buy the house. So you go, hey, Mr. Seller, I'll give you 200 grand for this house. Distressed, motivated seller, good candidate for like a fix and flip. And they agree to it, put it in contract. Then you find an actual flipper and you say, hey, I have this deal, does it work for you at 220? And they look at it and they go, yeah. And then so flipper brings 220 to close, seller gets the 200 that you agreed on, and then you make 20 in between as an assignment fee for selling the contract. And the way that wholesaling is pitched for anyone that sells a course on it is basically like, if you're retarded and have a pulse and no money, like this is for you. And I was like, that's me for sure.
Okay.
But
it stayed within, you're saying wholesaling, there's wholesaling, different varieties.
Yep.
So you stayed in the real estate market.
Yep.
That's where you listening to podcasts on that, still trying to learn.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
I was just trying to learn and, listening to different like self-development or entrepreneur stuff all the time. And then with that, this was before wholesaling was like super, super popular. So there was like it's called Wholesaling Inc. It's still a podcast now. But back then I remember they only had 134 episodes. Every episode was a pitch for their $5,000 coaching program, which I couldn't afford. So what I did while I was parking cars at the valet, I would put my phone in my pocket right here on my shirt where we held our valet tickets. When I was in people's cars, I would listen to the podcast. And every time I heard a nugget that I didn't know, I would put it in the notes in my phone. So I listened to all the episodes available. And then by the end of it, I basically had the blueprint on how to wholesale without paying for the course.
Right.
So then when I got back from Warped Tour, I'm like, okay, cool. Like I'm going to try to wholesale now instead of go back to work. Still doing music too.
Okay.
And then, I did my first deal, closed it January of 2018, and then just started doing that stuff a little bit more. So then fast forward to 2020, I had met my my current business partner through, you know, real estate or whatnot in 2018. At some point we partnered up in 2019. Then we started flipping as well as wholesaling. And then it was kind of like, you know, I was doing better, and that was like more interesting to me than music. And I was also not progressing like I wanted to in music. I wasn't having fun with music. And it was like real estate was becoming like more time intensive, and music was like less and less important to me. So then I finally just pulled the plug on it.
But the real estate obviously was bringing in your cash flow there.
Yeah.
Compared to the music.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And like, yeah, music, it's just numbers. Like, you know, on Spotify, you make like $0.004 per stream.
Yeah.
So still, like right now, I have no fucking clue why. I can't really figure it out, but I still have like 100,000 monthly listeners on Spotify right now. I haven't put out anything in 4.5 years.
Yeah. That's pretty dope.
Yeah. It's cool. So like the catalog makes like $1,500 a month right now. I still split that with Garrett and Allen, you know, to this day. But so yeah, like you do make some money, and then from like shows and merch and whatnot, but like I mean, a wholesale deal, you make more.
Right.
So yeah, it was like, oh, I'm actually like making money over here. I'm still like trying to make money over here. It's basically, it got to the point where it was sort of like supporting itself, because with music, because for a long time, for like, you know, 7 or 8 of those 10 years, I would work and then use my money to fund it. So right now I'm probably ahead a little bit, which is not a great business model if it takes you 14 years to like turn a profit.
Yeah.
But I did the math one time, and I had spent like, over all of those years, I had spent like 150 grand total on music, and then only got to the point where I was like, it was paying for itself at that point, and not really making anything yet. So yeah, it's just one of those things where it's like, all right, I gotta stop doing this and just like focus on the real estate right now.
Yeah. All right. Before we get off the music topic and move on, I do got to ask, knowing everything you know now with like TikTok and kind of how like artists blow up, you know, one hit wonders and you know, all that kind of stuff, but like just all the knowledge you have now with like all the social medias, how bummed are you, but like you were a little too early, don't you think? Because now you could have really capitalized and you know, done something.
Totally. Yeah. Like you think back and you're like, like this is where I fucked up. Like I could have done it. But ultimately, like I don't really think of anything in that regard. You know, that's where like people have regrets about things. I don't think of that at all, because I had to go through that to get to where I'm at now. Correct, so yeah. I still, you know, even when you have like a failure, like no matter how big or small, it's only really a failure like if you view it that way. So even though it's like, yeah, I quit doing music completely, that's why people always ask me like, do you regret that or whatever? And it's like, no, because I had to do that to do what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
Yeah, it doesn't matter to me. You know, you can be bummed about it and look back and like, like that definitely would have worked, like whatever. But ultimately, like it doesn't matter to me.
Yeah. I just feel like that sometimes. Not that I'm bummed or anything, but sometimes you're just a little early on things, that you're doing things, and then 10 years later, everyone's doing the same exact thing. You're like,
yeah,
damn.
Yeah.
But it is what it is, and you do learn from all that stuff.
As long as you take the lessons from it and apply it to what you're currently doing, like that's what matters to me. So
when, you know, I'm wearing the merch. So when did the glove company come?
Yeah. So Bad Touch, I had Bad Touch like as a name before, because I used to sell my, my music merch under the same website.
Okay.
So it wasn't really a thing, but it was just like the website name. And then so that started, I think the first drop was in 2020. But it took like a year and a half before that trying to like develop the glove, because again, like no business, like trying to figure out fucking supply chain management. Like I'm a dumbass. So, trying to do that and like sourcing product and like no clue. And it's kind of funny looking back now, you know, it's like whoever I was talking to definitely knew that I had no clue what I was doing, you know, because how could you not? I see that now with real estate. you know, new wholesalers call us all the time, you can just tell immediately that like they've never done a deal because they don't speak the language or whatnot.
Yeah.
Same thing happened for sure with that, where you're like trying to find suppliers of gloves overseas and like trying to place orders. Like I don't know any of the terminology. So it took a long time just to like try to develop the glove how we wanted it. And then yeah, the first drop of that was like 2020.
And what made you want to do that?
I just wanted to do something in Moto, and that was like seemed like something that I could probably figure out. Again, like lessons with that, because I don't do it anymore. It's like still available, but that's another thing along with the podcast that I know has great potential, and it just pisses me off that I can't do anything with it.
Yeah.
But you know, it is what it is right now. And yeah, with that, it was just like gloves are kind of like the t-shirt company of like soft products.
Yeah.
Because basically anyone could figure out how to do that at least. So that's why I started with gloves.
Okay, so your drop was 2020. COVID was that time, so
yeah,
might have been slow for you.
It was like literally the week before COVID. It was March of 2020 when we did the first drop.
Yeah, and then at the same time you're doing the real estate, and that's obviously giving you money, so it's more, in a way, kind of a hobby that you're doing.
Yeah.
How long did you stick with it, like full force?
I never really did it full force. But probably for the first like 2 years, I would actually like try to do things with it. And then I haven't done really anything in about 2 years for the most part.
Yeah. Well, I saw you at the races a couple times.
Yep.
That's where I bought this hat.
Yep.
So
yeah, that's super fun going and selling at the races. Like, you know, me and JP, just because we just hang out all the time anyway. And like anyone that knows JP is fucking one of a kind human.
Yeah.
So anywhere where he's at is like a better place. So you go sell with him, it's always fun, like no matter what happens. But we would do pretty good at the races, selling, depending on the race. You know, I learned a lot on, you know, I guess all types of business stuff from Bad Touch. You figure out after a while, like all business is the same. It's just different service, different product. But having different experiences in business can really sort of like open your eyes to, I guess, the different strategies that you can try in whatever the current business is that you're doing.
Yeah. Okay. So people can still buy some gloves?
Yeah. I still get orders and shit. So I'll fill them when I get them, but I don't even have time to like post, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like, again, do I have time to post? Yeah, probably. But I don't want to like post and then not be able to have time to do the rest of the stuff that I would have to do to like have it be worthwhile or fulfilling for me. It's just like a drain. It's just a suck on me because I'm just constantly thinking about like what this could be if I wasn't an idiot, or like if I figured it could do it how I want, you know? So it's like, maybe I'll come back to it at some point, or maybe not. Maybe I'll find something better to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So then now we're at the, you know, still doing real estate, but you're doing some big stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. One of those things too, where it's like, you always want so much more. So I don't think it's big, but if you look back at like when I first started wholesaling, like listening to the podcast while I was driving other people's cars, yeah, pretty big.
Yeah. So, that's kind of what you're doing still, the whole wholesaling and flipping houses.
Yeah. Most of what we do right now is wholesale, actually. When I partnered with Wes, until June of 22, we flipped most of the inventory instead of wholesale. And then the market changed in June of 22. Rates went way up. We had like 10 active rehabs at the time, and you see like what's supposed to be probably like 500K in profit go to zero. And then it gets like really scary when you're leveraged at 12% debt or 100% debt on all of these deals, paying 12% interest. And we don't even know if we can sell them because it just like stopped overnight. It was very scary. So then at that point, we kind of pivoted back to wholesale. And then right now we mostly wholesale. It's probably like 90-10 wholesale and flip.
Okay. What's your company called?
Reno Area Home Buyers.
Okay. I got a flyer. That's how I linked up with you, because I got a flyer.
That's
I
right.
just moved into my house.
Yep.
And I get one of your flyers. You want to buy my house for 100 less. So I was like, dude,
Yeah.
what are we trying to do here?
Probably, yeah. Oh, did it have a number on it?
Huh?
The piece of mail had a number on it?
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah,
So
we send out a lot of mail every month, and
yeah,
some of them are just more generic, like
yeah,
cash offer type, and then some of them actually have like some auto generated number thing on it.
I just thought it was funny, so I took a photo of him. Well, I know this guy.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's how we linked up, and I finally got you into the studio. I wanted to do a business podcast with a buddy of mine, so we were thinking about it, but that kind of fell through. So that's why I haven't asked you. You know, I've known you for a little while now.
Yeah.
I've known what you've done, or you've been doing, and everything. So I was like, that'd be a great one. You know, especially start the year off, get a little motivation to some people,
Totally, yeah,
stuff like that. So, but now I'm like, I'll just do it on my regular podcast.
yeah, sure,
instead.
whatever works. We can talk business.
Yeah, but I thought that was funny. But yeah, so that's going really good for you.
Yeah, it's yeah, I mean, it has its ups and downs just like everything else, but yeah, for the most part it's good. We do some pretty decent volume. I think we closed like 70 or a little bit more than that houses last year, or in 24. But yeah, we're just trying to do more, and we have like a brokerage and stuff that's like the sister company. And so yeah, eventually we want to get to about 200 deals a year. And that's sort of like kind of where that will cap out. And we have, I think there's like 8 of us in the office, and we'll probably get to about 15 people total or so. So that's sort of like the 3-year plan with Reno area home buyers and TrueNest, which is the brokerage. And then from there, who knows? I don't know what'll happen after that. If we want to, we would have the option to, open up the same model in a different market, or license it in a different market even, or just do like something totally different or whatever. So yeah, I look at it as like, it's a good way to build the skill set that I need for something better, or something, whatever the next opportunity is. Just like I started to build the skill set through music and Bad Touch, and now this. And then so every time you build the skill set, you just get the fast forward button on the next one. Yeah. So business is like, I listen to a lot of Alex Hormozy, and he has sort of like a chart that he talks about a lot, where it's like, when you get into business, you have uninformed optimism. That's like sort of the delusion that I was talking about. Yeah. And then you go through these cycles where like you figure out more about the business, and you're like, oh, this isn't as good as I thought it was going to be. And then like you go through a hard time in the business, and that's like his valley of despair is what he calls it. And that's where most people quit. Yeah. But if you can just bust through that, then you have a lot of upside potential. And so with like the high volume, larger team, like wholesale and flipping company, there's definitely like restraints or like negative things about the business model that like other companies might not have. But I know that I have uninformed optimism about other companies. So that's what makes it like, I just got to do this. Don't worry about the other shit right now. Just build your skill set, build your first real company that like you are a true owner in, and don't have to operate or work there. Yeah. And then you'll have the skill set to give you the fast forward button on the next one. And do you have any vision? What's the next one going to be? No, not yet. Things change so often and so fast, it's hard to tell. But it could be a combination of a few things too. Like we've always wanted to do larger product, because right now we mostly do like regular residential, single families, manufactured, condo, townhouse. There's always the option to do like finally do like large multifamily or commercial of some sort. We've done like one ground up project, so we could do more of that. There's a ton of stuff to do in real estate that's like higher skill set, higher reward, that we could go after. Or like it could be some of that and a totally different business, like something like Bad Touch. At that point it's hard to say like I'll just do that now, because at that time, with whatever my current skill set looks like, I might look at that and be like, no, that's not a very good opportunity. Right. I would rather do this in Moto, or not at all, like something else. Like that's the thing about, there's like different types of entrepreneurs too. Like this might come from Hormozy too, but my partner is more of like an artist, where he's an entrepreneur, but he wants to do like work that means a lot to him, or like he wants to do the thing, you know, he's like, that's his art.
Yeah.
Where me, I don't give a fuck what the product is. I like building the business. That's the art to me.
Yeah.
So I don't care if we're fucking doing gloves or double wides or fucking dildos. I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
I like building the business.
Dildos would kill it.
You never, there's a way to kill it.
I might have to go in business with you on that one. How'd you meet Wes, and how did you know that he would probably be a good partner? Because obviously you wanted him as a partner. So
yeah. That's a really good question. So we met because I was wholesaling on my own. He worked for a large institutional flipper that operates in Reno. They have like, they're in like 10 states or something. But he was a project manager for them. So he would basically run rehabs for them. And back then that was pre-COVID. So their entire business model was like buying at the courthouse steps, pretty much. What we do, which is why you got a piece of mail, is we do direct to seller marketing. So we produce a ton of marketing, all different types of marketing channels. And then we meet directly with the homeowner in their house. So it's like, you know, homes that are never listed on the MLS, we go before that.
Yeah.
At Wedgwood, the company he was at, they didn't do any marketing. They just bought at the steps, foreclosures, stuff like that. So because of that, he would get a bonus every time that he found, like, sourced another type of deal. So every time I would sell them a deal, a wholesale deal, I would do it through him. So he would get his bonus because I liked him. And he eventually, like, there was no upward mobility for him at the company. So he came to me and was like, hey, we should partner up, and you keep doing what you're doing. Like, you know how to find deals and like get them in contract. And then once we do that, we can either wholesale it, or if we want to flip it, we can buy it and I'll run the rehabs. And he had his real estate license. And so he was like, and I can sell it. And for your question about like, why did I pick him as a partner? I got super fucking lucky because it literally could have been anyone with the same pitch. And I would have been like, okay, cool. Knowing what I know now about partnerships and seeing so many failed partnerships, I just got super, super lucky that we work good together and we have opposite skill sets, and it ended up working out long term.
So you kind of went on a whim. You're like, yeah, I'll trust this guy. But then he went on the fact of knowing the business and then knowing what you brought to the business. And he's like, that I could do this with this guy.
Yeah, exactly. And he tells people, because I've heard people ask him the same question, like he tells people that he saw in me like good work ethic because of like Feeki and like being on my own, where I didn't have like a job and I would still like show up every day and just do what's required. And then also back then, you know, I'm fucking pounding bandit signs into the ground. Bandit signs are those little yellow signs that you see around that say we buy houses or something like that. Yeah. And because I didn't really have a marketing budget with those first few deals, you know, so I was literally pounding bandit signs into the ground, the frozen tundra around McCarran, like where the stakes would be bending and shit at midnight, you know, and I would just do whatever to get deals because, you know, when I first started, the thought of making $5,000 at one time as a wholesale deal, I was like, fuck, I'd do anything for that. So I did. Yeah. I just did what I had to. And he knew with himself, he's like, I would never do that. But he will. So he like valued the work ethic that he saw in me. Plus like the opposite skill sets, you know, it's kind of the same thing. And yeah, so then we just partnered up, and that we officially partnered like June of 2019 and then took it from there.
Yeah. It's been working ever since.
Yeah. Trying to make it work, you know, well, learning, stumbling as we go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's cool, dude. You mentioned a few quotes and podcasts and stuff. So you read a lot and listen to podcasts mostly?
Not as much as I used to. It really just depends on what the content is. You know, it's like, because you need different content as you go. You know, a lot of the content that's available is really good and really helpful for people that are like just starting in business. Like that was the shit that I would consume from like 2015 on. Now, you know, even with like Alex Hormozy, his stuff is a little bit higher level for the most part. He does make some stuff for like brand new people. But from his point of view, you know, he owns acquisition.com, private equity company, and all they do is buy businesses. So his target audience is business owners that are doing a certain amount of volume or a certain amount of sales, I should say. So I get a lot of value from his content,
Right.
whereas some of the other content that might be really good, I don't really get much value from it because I already have the mindset that they're trying to instill in people that don't,
Yeah.
you know? So I don't really read all that much or consume like that much. It's really got to be like a specific thing that I want to learn about, and then I'll read or do the podcast thing.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that like, yeah, I wish more people would like consume that type of content. Like we live in a fucking awesome time right now. It's pretty insane that I can just listen to these super high level entrepreneurs, like literal billionaires, for free, like endless amounts of content, and like people just choose not to.
Yeah.
They just choose to keep doing what they've always done, and fucking they got tricked into this life that like this is a good job, and it's like, no, it's not. You know, it's just a mindset that it's a good job.
Yeah.
So I wish more people would do it. And I empathize with a lot of those people because like with a couple of different decisions, that's me for sure. Like I would definitely just like be an equipment operator and live for Friday at 5 p.m. and just as long as I can make enough money to race, like I'm good. You know, I have tons and tons of friends like that, and
there's nothing wrong with that.
There's nothing wrong with it. But I think that probably if people were honest with themselves, like everyone does want more.
Yeah.
And it's just ignorance, and not in a bad way. Not, you know, people use the word ignorant like it's a bad thing. It's just like they just don't know.
Exactly.
And if they knew what I knew or were exposed to the same things, like they wouldn't be doing that. They would be trying to pursue, you know, a little bit more for themselves.
Yeah. But also it takes the drive, and you can't put that into anyone.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, that's
so,
true.
Yeah, you know, anyone can listen to the stuff you have and learn. And if you don't do the drives, kind of like what we're saying, we're kind of, not that we don't have the drive, but you know, you just don't do the stuff sometimes, even though you know better.
Right.
You know,
yeah.
So.
And a lot of people make excuses for themselves too, which drives me up the wall, because for every excuse you might be able to make, you know, there's a million counter examples to that. So, you know, a lot of people are like, well, you know, yeah, you can do that because of this, but me, I got this. It's like, I got kids. It's like, oh yeah, you're right, dude. No one has ever been successful because they have kids.
Yeah.
You're totally right.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like, you just got to figure out what works for you.
Yeah.
You know,
the kid thing, actually, it should be more of a motivator for you to, you know,
if it's important to you, you'll find a way to do it. You know, it's always priorities, and like different people have different priorities, but ultimately it's always comes down to like, how bad do you want it?
Yeah.
You know, I run a meetup in Reno once a month. It's like an investor meetup. I've been doing it for like 5 years, and
only in real estate, or anyone
can come. But yeah, I mean, I just like teach about what we do, because like I'm not going to try to teach about shit that I don't know about.
Oh, okay.
But I see people all the time. They come to the meetup and they're like, you know, they want to get into wholesaling because they saw it online or whatever. And they're like, oh, I make you know, I'm an engineer at Tesla. I make 180,000 a year. I want to wholesale. I'm like, no, the fuck you don't.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, you should just like skip to step 3 and like become a real investor. And they're like kind of shocked that I say that, because that's what I do. And I'm like, trust me, because they don't know what it actually takes to do what I've done, or even to just do your first wholesale deal.
Right.
I'm like, you're not going to do what I did, because you're already used to getting 15 grand a month.
Yeah.
I would do anything, literally anything, for the hope of making $5,000 at one time. They're just not going to be as hungry for that as I was. And they're in a different spot in life where they can just like go do something that's like a better fit for them, you know? And I tell people that you could apply this to anything that you are thinking about doing or whatnot. But in real estate terms, there's so many different ways to make money in real estate with all the strategies, and they all work. That's the problem. But you really just got to pick your strategy first, and you should pick that based on where you're at right now. Like if you have no money and a lot of time and effort, wholesaling is your thing. That was me. On the other end of the spectrum, there's hard money lending where you don't want to put any time in, but you have a shitload of capital and you're just going to lend it to someone else that wants to do work and you get a return.
Yeah.
And then there's a million things in between that spectrum. So like picking your business or your side hustle or however you want to get more for yourself can be done on the same thing. It's like if you work 40 hours a week and have a family and XYZ, maybe wholesaling is not for you, but there might be something else that's for you, you know, just in your business. You just have to make a good decision on like, what am I most likely to succeed in the fastest? Just do that because you can always change it later.
Yeah. Do you think it's a good move to go into real estate as a realtor right now?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
You know, being a realtor is a sales job.
Yeah.
So I think that's where a lot of people fuck it up because they don't realize that and they never realize that. And then they can't figure out why they don't do business. And yeah, realtors a lot of them drive me up a wall because it's just like any other industry where most of them are retarded and there's some people that are good.
Yeah.
The people that are good split 90% of the business, and the 90% of people that are bad split 10% of the business and can't figure out why they can't do deals.
Right.
But realtors especially they're just known for like playing business is what I call it. They do everything except things that would make them money. It's like they're obsessed with, I got to get my business cards and I got to go to this event and I got to fucking do this bullshit market update post that no one gives a fuck about, even their clients, even people that are interested in buying a house, no one cares. They'll do anything but pick up the phone and cold call, you know? So like being a realtor is a fucking great way to make money if you're good.
Okay.
Just like anything else, you know, if you know what to do, if you know, like, if you just understand, it's the same exact thing as wholesaling. I'm going to cold call. That's my marketing strategy. And I'm going to make X amount of calls per day. And that's it. I'm going to dedicate 6 months to that. You'll do it.
Yeah.
If you do all the other shit that doesn't make money, you're going to be sitting around in 6 months wondering why people aren't calling you to list their home or being mad at your friend because they went with a different agent that cold called them.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny. Yeah. Cause I have a house for sale right now and, I'll talk to a friend that does real estate and they're like, who's your agent? I'm like, dude, my agent's been the agent I've had for like over 10 years. Like it's nothing personal.
Yep.
You know?
Right. It's always personal to realtors for some reason, but yeah, it's, I don't know why, but I think it's because our price point is so high. You know, tons of people have their real estate license in Northern Nevada. There's like 4,000 agents, which is like way skewed for the population. But I don't know what the actual stat is, but I would guess that less than 1,000 of them have done a deal in the last year. So 3,000 people have their real estate license that literally did no business in the last year. And those are the people that people are like, oh, my friend's a realtor. They're going to list the house for me. I'm like, well, your friend works at Bullies. So what's the likelihood that they're going to nail it? You know, it's like hire the expert regardless, you know? So retail buyers are very, very picky. So like, you know, flipping, we see the weirdest fucking shit ever because like all the inventory that we buy is like, not all of it, but most of it is very, very distressed or very weird or whatever. Retail buyers, I kind of understand it because buying a house is like a huge deal and it's such a process and, you know, you're getting a loan and the bank is fucking bending you over, asking for all this shit. And it's like, they want the home to be like totally perfect because it's been such a process. They don't want to do anything to it when they're done. So you'll see people like pass on their dream home because the kitchen is the wrong color. It's like, you could paint, you know, but they just don't want to do it. And then depending on market conditions, like during COVID, like picky retail buyers went out the window because you couldn't even get a house. Like you got to offer on it. You got to offer over ask to even have a hope to get it. But now since it's slower, there's more inventory and stuff. People are back to being picky like that.
See,
and
that's where not to cut you off, but the ignorance, you know, I should have sold my house at that time and what stuff was going in my neighborhood was crazy.
Yep.
You know, and then now I'm like, we were just ignorant. We were like, I don't know if we can sell it right now and get like a bigger loan and stuff, and we couldn't.
Mhm.
We just didn't really think about it,
Yeah.
and we weren't ready.
Mhm.
So by the time we were ready, it's like everything's going down and stuff. So now we're having a harder time. The rates are high and everything.
Right,
So
right.
it's like, damn, that's just
Yeah.
ignorance.
Everything works out for a reason, I think. So like, if you did that, you wouldn't have this place,
Right.
because
Yep.
this wouldn't have been available at that time. And people ask me all the time, like, should I buy a house right now? And I don't know. It's like, I'm not as emotionally connected to it as, most people are,
Mhm.
just because we do, the transactions so often. But to me, it's like, yeah, maybe. It's always like, it depends. That's the answer. It's
Yeah.
like, if you're gonna stay in a house, like you only want to be there for 2 years, like you should just rent. Like you shouldn't buy it, because there's too many things that could cause the value to go down or put you in a bad spot or something. If you're gonna be there for 10 plus years, like you're probably gonna be okay. So like buy the house,
Yeah.
there's never like a perfect time to buy or sell. It's just like whatever your situation is right now, does it make sense for you to do either of those things? Like if yes, do it. If no, whatever. Like there's always going to be better timing.
Mhm.
Everyone wishes they could have bought a house
Yeah.
in 2011,
Yeah.
and like no one did because everyone was scared of the market. And then we look back like, oh, that house instead was only 100 grand and now it's 400. It's like, yeah, well, like what are you going to do about it?
Yeah.
So what's your
That's-
situation now?
I think that's what being an adult is. Just like, damn, could have done that, but
Yep.
I didn't. So now let's do what we're supposed
Yeah,
to do. Like,
I know.
You know.
People get hung up on that too often. It's like, it's
Yeah.
not that big of a deal. Like who cares?
So a lot of the houses you do get are like distressed, like you say, and I do see
Mhm.
you posting things where like they're hoarders or there's a shit. What do you do with all
Yeah.
the stuff in the house?
You just trash it out.
Okay.
When you wholesale, you don't do anything because, someone else is actually purchasing it.
Mhm.
But whether it's us buying it or another buyer buying it, like it's all the same. So yeah, most of it just gets thrown away.
So it's basically like yours. I saw
Yeah.
recently you had one where they had like a full gym.
In the living room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What'd you do with all that?
I don't know, because we wholesaled it, but
Oh, okay.
I don't know if they ended up taking that, because the photos that I'll post are from like our acquisition appointment. So like when we're before they actually sell, most of the time, all the shit is left. But they do take some of it. I would assume that they probably took that gym equipment. I'm not totally sure.
Mhm.
But yeah, you can find some good stuff once in a while,
Yeah.
but it's like few and far between, because most of it is just like
trash.
actual trash or
Yeah.
disgusting or whatever.
Yeah, I was gonna say maybe you could start a flipping company. I would have bought the gym equipment.
Yeah.
Have
Yeah.
a gym here now. So
We have an inside joke with JP. He has Senator's junk removal because he's from Carson, Senators. Because him and his dad like talk about apple doesn't fall far. They're the same person, and we've let them go through a few of them. Senator's junk removal goes before the actual junk removal guys, and they'll pick through the shit. JP's got like fucking 16 extension cords at his house,
Yeah.
3 hoses, just stuff that he's pulled out of our house, stuff that he will never use
Yeah.
and doesn't need. And but they did pretty good on one of them. This like the rare exception. It was this house in Northwest, and the upstairs was a time capsule like from the 50s. And the dude who we bought it from lived in the basement, and it was his parents' house. And I think he had lived down there since he was a kid. And this dude was like 40.
Yeah.
And
he's a dude that talks shit on Call of Duty usually.
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And so the upstairs, like immaculate, downstairs, disgusting.
Right.
But so weird. Like, why wouldn't you just move into the upstairs? Why do you want to be in the basement? But P and his dad went through on that one, and they found all this like real jewelry and stuff, and they went to the pawn shop and they got like $1,700 from all this shit.
Yeah.
And they missed our actual junk removal guys. They found a full set of real silverware that was worth like $2 or $3 grand.
Yeah.
And so P and his dad missed that. So there was actually good shit in that house, but most of it's stuff that you wouldn't even want to touch.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Well, cool, man. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah.
This
Thanks
was
for
cool.
having me. Yeah. It's fun.
Yeah. You have anything you want to plug or you want to say?
No, not really. I don't have anything to sell, so there's nothing to plug. But
some gloves still,
yeah,
maybe.
if you want to buy some gloves, badtouchsupply.com. I'll ship the order.
Dude, you probably should. I don't know if you still have these hats, but you probably should have came out. Trump.
Yeah,
Trump's in office.
I think we are. I don't think I have any more of those. I have one, but I don't. I think that they're sold out, if I remember right. But yeah, that'd be cool. The gloves. That's all I have to plug though. Really
Okay.
nothing. Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on, man.
Cool. Thanks.
Yeah. And best of luck coming this year. Hopefully, you do some big things.
I hope so.
That's the thing. I wanna motivate people. So I wanted you to be one of the first guests I have for the year.
Yeah.
Just motivate people to go out there and do whatever. And having the studio is one of those things too, where I want to have people just come in. Hey, you want to try it? Podcast, like I said, is addicting. A lot of like the stat is like people start it, and I think they at episode 3, then they just give up.
Right.
There's like 2 million podcasts on Apple, and like 500,000 of them are one episode, and that's it.
Right.
So it's like it sounds nice and sounds easy, but once you start doing it, or you start doing it, there's no revenue coming in. People just think they're gonna make money.
Right.
But I want to encourage people.
Yeah.
Because you never know. Like you could be the next big thing that comes out.
Totally.
You never know. So that's why I just want positivity this year and just people to be more motivated and do stuff.
Yeah. The one thing that I'll say about like motivation or like business or whatever it is that you decide to do, it's a very easy analogy to think about it. Everything is like fitness. It's like, I like fitness because it's like the one thing that like can't be faked. And then people will say, well, what about steroids? And those are people that are not into fitness because they don't know that like those dudes work out way fucking harder than I do.
Yeah.
You don't just take steroids and you're ripped,
Right.
But it can't be faked. So like you see someone that's fit and they have the blueprint to do whatever because it's exactly the same. It's like fitness is you fucking go to the gym and you eat right for 10 years. That's it. You just do what you're supposed to do for a very long period of time, and then you're fit. When you start going to the gym, 30 days in, you don't look any different.
Right.
2 months in, you don't look any different. 10 years later, you're abnormally fit. So like business is exactly the same. If you just show up and do the right action for a long enough period of time in however many years that is, then people ask you like, how did you do what you did? Or like, can you help me do that? And that's like the podcast thing. It's like, you don't go to the gym 3 times and you're ripped. And so now it's worth it to keep doing it. Cause like, oh, that worked. It's like you do a few hundred episodes and then maybe you'll see if it works or not.
There's no instant gratification except for the fact of like putting out something that you enjoyed.
Yep.
And it's fun for you.
Exactly.
And that's it.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, thanks.
Cool. Thank you.